Welcome back. You're now watching the lifestyle segment of the weekend show. My name is Andy Madaki. This segment is brought to you by Holo Crunch, crunchy, yummy goodness, the popcorn right in front of me. Over the last 5-6 months, Nigeria went in lockdown. We weren't able to leave our houses as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. A lot of businesses stalled, a lot of people lost their jobs. One sector which contributes greatly to the reputation of Nigeria and also the financial sector is Nollywood and the entertainment sector. Now, in the last couple of weeks, we've learned that the federal government has relaxed the guidelines and protocols, which means we may be going back to cinemas really soon, which means movie producers may be able to shoot their movies. And so, I have some guests here to discuss how it has affected them and the way forward. My guests in the studio are Chavala Yaduma. She's an actress, a filmmaker. She just started her own production house lately. Welcome to the weekend show.
Thank you.
I also have Nafisat Suleiman. She is the regional business manager of Genesis Cinemas.
Very much.
And our return guest, Dimbo. Yeah, Dimbo is a filmmaker, producer. He made and produced Hazita, which my brother stars in.
Yes,
and so I get a lot of people asking me if I'm on Hazita.
And look alike. So.
Exactly, and I know you're doing some work lately. So welcome back to the weekend show.
The weekend show has become home, so I'm glad to be here.
Exactly. So representing your tribe, how has coronavirus affected Nollywood? From, we started this conversation before, and then coming back now.
Yeah, I mean, so like almost every sector, the film industry was hit really hard because productions shut down, and when you try to pick up production after a pandemic like that, it's always a whole different dynamic. Like for example, when we were filming Halita, we had almost like 70 crew members, but when we had to come back, we had to cut down to 13 people. Now, what it means is that 13 people were going to do the jobs of 7 other people, and it wasn't easy. And the scare of coming back, not knowing, what to expect from the actors to the crew was also something that we had to manage. It wasn't easy trying to convince actors to come back on set. And so the protocols that you had to put in place in terms of performance and, interactions, we had to look into the script and say, places where you're supposed to have this type of contact, we had to start reworking the script so that the actors could keep their distancing. In terms of technically, we couldn't clip any mic on anybody because you wanted to keep a distance between the sound guy. So they were doing more of the booming than the clip mic, and so they had to manage the sound better in a way that. So it was really very difficult initially when we came back. But knowing the can-do spirit of Nigerians, in 2 weeks we picked up pace. Everybody got really confident because what we did was before we came back, we had, of course, we're all in quarantine, but we had to now sit back and say, for those of you who are coming back, for the sake of others, just try and take care of yourself. And so we kept ourselves 2 weeks in our home. So when we came back, there was the confidence that, okay, at least, and then we're all in camp.
Yeah.
Actors, crew, everybody was in camp for the remaining time that we finished filming. And so that is even because we had the facilities and our clients had made it possible for us to be able to do all of that. Now imagine a situation where you had to do it yourself as an independent producer where you're supposed to do the funding yourself. Testing would have been a problem because it's very expensive to test for one person. Imagine if you had a 50-man crew and you needed to do a test. That's budget,
Yeah.
So people right now are looking into, what, I can't shoot them. For a fact that Omotala Jaladi got COVID-19 and
Yes.
I hear he was on a set. And so how do you deal with situations like that? Do you get to test everybody before you go filming? The average Nigerian producer does not have the kind of budget that requires him to do a test for a 10-man crew or a 15-man crew. It's very expensive, so to say. And sometimes it doesn't even come easy.
Okay, so Dimbo, I'll come back to you on the financial implications this has had. Chavala, this pandemic saw the rise of creatives. TikTok became everything. I mean,
Yes.
Jason Derulo became a video editor. So content creation got better. We saw a lot of that. And so it didn't really affect independent content creators as much. And that's an assumption. You are a content creator, and I saw that you released a short movie called, what was it called?
Dark Circle.
Dark Circle recently. Tell me, how has this affected actresses and actors like you and content producers?
So filmmakers and actors go hand in hand. Anything affecting filmmakers is going to affect us, the actors. So we will not be able to go for auditions as much, and then we will not be able to get jobs as much as well. But for Dark Circle, what I did was I had to check online, which is now maximizing the digital platform. I had to check online for the actors, even the crew that I worked with, the creative crew, everything was online. Pre-production was so difficult, especially when it comes to the locations, because most people will not want you to use their locations anymore. It would be bad publicity and also crowd control. When it came to production as well, I had to be careful because I had to use a child on set. So the parents as well, they were not comfortable at first, but I had to assure them that everything is going to be okay. So it wasn't as smooth as it should be. And then for post-production, when I was writing it last year, November, I actually thought I was going to do, a little premiere, viewing, screening and all of that after it's out, but that didn't happen. COVID said no. So all of that kind of interfered, but at the end of the day, for YouTubers as well, we had enough time to create content online, sit, talk about everything. Yeah, and TikTok as well. A lot of people went on TikTok. Me, for instance, so we had time to do all of that and creative planning as well.
Okay, we'll come back to that. A sector which I personally was affected, and I don't work there, is cinemas. Netflix became very useful and very helpful. Interestingly, Netflix Nigeria launched at about the time we were getting into the full lockdown. But we missed the feel of going to the cinemas to watch new movies, to see stuff which wasn't done 5 years ago and now put on Netflix. You work with Genesis Cinemas, great company, and so we go there to watch our movies. I've been there a couple of times. How has this affected your business?
As taking for what Dimbo said, it has had a very hard hit on the sector generally, because if it affects production of movies, automatically it reduces the amount of movies that can be released in the theaters. So even before the lockdown, a lot of producers had already started postponing their movies till 2021, because this is the medium where they make the most money. And if they are not sure of the footfall, if they are not sure of the response to the movie, it means less income for them, which automatically means less income for us. So that has, and obviously we're out of business for over 5 months, and in that time there were still some running costs. We were in malls, we're in plazas, you have to pay your bills. There are still some people who were being paid salaries during that period of time. So you're spending money, you're not making any money, and it's just been really crazy.
So interestingly, there was something I assumed would happen within that time. So Mulan was released recently on Disney, and people had to pay $30 to watch it. Since we couldn't go to the cinemas, how come nobody said, you know what, let's put this online and you can pay and watch in your house during that time? Why wasn't that an option? Is it because you wanted to keep traditional movie viewing the way it is?
That would have been from the discretion of the studio. Really,
Okay.
it's not a decision we can make.
Yeah.
So I guess the producer of the movie decided that, okay, this content has stalled for too long. I don't know what is going to happen, but obviously the online market is a market that is not going anywhere. So I had better just make my money here rather than wait, because I don't know how long this is going to drag for.
But as much as we recognize and appreciate the fact that Netflix Nigeria, for one, is in Nigeria, I also hear the money being paid for these movies is nothing comparable to what's being paid outside Nigeria and for the quality of work being put out. Do you think this is one of the reasons why most filmmakers haven't said, you know what, let's just do this and get whatever we can get? What's your take on that?
So, to be frank and to be honest, I haven't seen any official document. You know, most people have kept the numbers to themselves.
Of course.
Of course, we've heard the speculation. Some people have speculated that these movies were paid as low as $5,000.
I've heard that too.
That's the speculation.
Yeah.
A movie has gotten $50,000, you know.
Okay.
But compared to what other productions are getting abroad, I think that Netflix Nigeria had a plan. and of course the market share was pretty much Nigeria and Nigerians in diaspora, because I'm sure there are some places that you can't have access to Netflix Nigeria. It's tailored to a certain market, and if the market only has this to consume, then we'll jump on it and just give you what you need to get. But of course, they go through quality control, and so you don't get to see new productions going on Netflix Nigeria. Most of everything that's on Netflix are things that have been done before. Sons of the Caliphate is on Netflix Nigeria. This was done 5 years ago and is on Netflix Nigeria. So I haven't seen any brand new productions except for the ones that they've commissioned that they're still under production. We're waiting to see what it will look like. And so everybody is just cashing in on the most that they can get. These are films that have generated revenues before now.
And they've
been to the cinema. So this residue, the small change that can come in.
Tell me, Dimbo, money was lost during the pandemic.
Yes.
How did this affect the industry and filmmakers and actors?
No, greatly affect, because what that means is that there is no budget anywhere to make any film right now. Why? Because people are skeptical of putting their money down. I just finished filming our new movie, and I had to talk to a couple of investors. And the first question is, why are you even shooting the movie in the midst of a pandemic? Why are you taking the risk? And the conversation is simple, because everybody else is not shooting the movie. So I'm standing out to shoot the movie when everybody is pulling out.
What's the name and when is it coming out?
Okay, it's called Still Falling, and we're actually looking at targeting first quarter of next year. And so we feel that now that everybody is holding back their money, refusing to make movies, we've taken the jump, and we hope that when we're ready to release it, there won't be enough movies to compete with us in the cinema. So we get the numbers. It's a risk. It might happen that by February next year, God forbid,
that phase of lockdown.
But we're very optimistic that by February next year, people will have gained the confidence back, because we're having a conversation earlier, and I said the December rush is coming. Trust me, Nigerians are going to go out there and go have fun in December period, and that is what most producers are targeting. Those who already have products down, they're waiting for the December period for the rush. I hope that they're going to make their money back, because the confidence will come back for Nigerians, and by February or by March next year, they probably will have been more confident now to enter and watch Still Falling. So
Nafisat, when a cinema is opening, and I understand they're meant to operate at half capacity, so tell me, what's it going to be like, the new normal for cinemas?
So cinemas officially opened yesterday, Friday 11th September, but just select cinemas, because different states and their ministers, their governors have to make that decision on if they are ready to let the state open. So for instance, Abuja is open for Genesis Cinemas, Warri is open, and Abia State is open, of our 10 sites. Now the measures that have been put in place with regulations from Cinema Exhibitors Association of Nigeria is we can only operate on half capacity of any hall. Obviously we have to take before we could even open, we had to take all the safety measures, fumigations, disinfections, make sure we told our staffs that were coming back. Obviously there was a serious cut, there was a serious cut in employment. We could only come back with about 20% of our staff strength. And we had to make sure we let everybody know that, okay, before you come back to work, stay at home for a while. We had to give them heads up. Now temperature checks, it takes longer basically. And before we used to have 15 minutes cleaning interval between movies, it had to be increased to 30 minutes. So which would automatically affect the amount of movies you can show in a day. So if one screen could do 5 shows in a day, by the time you spread that 15 minutes into each movie, you could probably do only 3 shows in a day, and you can only admit half capacity. So it's all just going to have a ripple effect on revenue generally, but we're happy to be open. So we have temperature checks. You can't enter without your mask. We have the social distancing stickers on the floor, and our customer attendants have their face masks with the face shield. So it's all yes.
Okay, I look forward to seeing the movies, and I'll find out. And if you're lying, I'll come back
to
you.
Please, no.
Chavala, the new normal. So a lot of actors and actresses lost their jobs, and so more people are looking at becoming content creators, and that's production people. What do you feel actors should do now? What should be the new innovative way to stay relevant and known in their craft, seeing that not everybody would be able to go out as much, and everything has changed, even in your industry. So what's the new way of work going to be like? What should it be for actors and content creators?
So for actors, knowing that we can't go on for auditions anymore and get called, I feel like a lot of filmmakers are using digital platform, like I said, Instagram. A lot of the roles that I've gotten have been from my Instagram. So what I'm saying is they should do more monologues online, you know, sell themselves out there, create content just online, Instagram, Twitter, because that's the new cool now. Everybody's doing that, and I don't think in a pandemic like this, any director will call for auditions in crowd. So that's basically what I'll say. Just do monologues online, you know, keep the contents going, keep rolling.
Tell us about your production company and what you're working on now.
Okay, so I started my production company beginning of this year. Basically, what I'm doing is just creating a bridge for creatives. You know, Abuja, we don't really have the entertainment sector big here. So what I'm doing is just creating a bridge for content creators, videographers, cinematographers, you know, actors, upcoming. Let's build together. Let's create a space for ourselves. We can't just sit down and wait for people to call us, you know. The more you put out things, the more people see you. So that's what I'm trying to do. Just gather together as a group, a lot of collaborations as well. And right now I'm working on a fashion film for my friend's brand, Ninja. So that's what we're doing. We're starting filming tomorrow.
What's the name of your company?
Vala Films.
Okay, it's been nice having you on the show and talking about what you've been doing and the way forward in the industry. Dimbo, I'll give you the final word.
Yeah.
For filmmakers, what should be the way forward? What should they do better? Writing of scripts would change because the numbers would also reduce also.
Yeah.
So final words, what's the way forward for your
just like
space?
you said, collaboration is the way forward. I recently collaborated with Sadao Pictures and another of our friends, her name is Fifi. Three of us came together to put resources to make a mini-series called The Plan, and it was successful. And so we can't have the many number of production, what do you call it, locations going on like Nollywood used to. So if you have 5 producers collapse into one production, you know, I mean, of course, you get to get a quality product because now the new normal, nobody will walk into a cinema to watch a terrible movie.
Yeah.
It has to be properly done because, of course, they have to increase the revenue in terms of the money to pay to watch a movie. And if you walk in with 3,000 naira or 4,000 naira to see a movie and you come out crying, that's bad publicity for them.
So you
if I
go
pay
back
that
there.
much and I come out like, yes, that was very good, then it works for you. So producers need to wake up and produce quality production. And quickly, if I may mention, please, a responsible government will look into how they can help this sector. If these people are losing money for the 5 months they've not been working, they're cutting down their staff to 20%, and they're going to be showing like 3 shows instead of 5. Government should say, you know what, take some money to help. For those of us who are in the production sector, the government should have a very easy way that we can access funds because nobody is giving our money right now. We haven't been making money, so we don't even have our own personal money to put into film production. And this is an industry that employs so many people. So they should focus on that, even if it is a little. Let it be that, oh, at least we got something from this government.
If not for time, I would have discussed the creative industries loan, which
yes.
we heard about.
The C5, whatever, that is so redundant right now. Nobody's even talking about it. But that is what should wake up to help the industry. Cinema houses should have some money to make sure that we can go and watch movies. And the producers, we should be able to find some sort of loan somewhere where we can pay back and do quality productions. Okay.
Nafisa, your final words. So people have lost their jobs.
Yes.
How sustainable do you think your sector, traditional going to cinemas, how do you think that's going to work? And how would it be sustainable going forward?
I would say, though online viewing movie sites and viewing platforms is a thing now and it's here to stay, but so is cinemas, because I feel like the big screen experience is unrivaled, honestly. And going to the cinemas for me is like a moment of bonding and sharing, because you know, you go with family, you sit down there, then there are many improvements now in the cinema experience, the sound, the quality of the quick picture quality. As he said, the amount of effort that goes into production these days. So I feel like the experience is unrivaled. So it's something to always look forward to. As you said, it became a second home for you. It's been a second home for you. So a lot of people have missed that experience, and you just want to leave the house. At this point, you just want to go out. So yes, it is here to stay.
Okay, Dimbo, Nafisat, and Chavala, it's been a pleasure having this conversation with you. We will look forward to seeing improvements in the sector. We look forward to seeing more funding to the sector and more innovative ways of work. That's all for the lifestyle segment, but in the last couple of days, just last week, my producer and host, Osasu Igbenidian, who isn't here today, had the 2020 Osasu Show Symposium. This happened live in Abuja with a lot of virtual speakers. We do have highlights from that, so we'll take a break, and when we return, more on the weekend show. Don't go away.
After 3 consecutive editions, the Osasu Show Symposium, which has become a widely acclaimed forum where key stakeholders from the public, private and development sectors converge to discuss salient issues regarding sustainable development as it pertains to the welfare and livelihood of citizens, held its 4th edition with the theme Rethinking Africa. During the opening remarks, convener of the Osasu Show Symposium and CEO of TOS TV Network, Osasu Igbenidian, called on the continent to rise to the occasion of rethinking Africa, as well as leverage its resources for repositioning in the post-COVID world.
Words are not enough to describe the havoc caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, especially to families who lost loved ones. My prayer is that the Almighty God will comfort the bereaved and give those of us whose lives were spared a rethink to how we operate not only in business, but purposefully across board. The theme of this year's symposium is Rethinking Africa. This conversation is timely, given the lessons the pandemic has taught us regarding the need to be self-sufficient. We can no longer afford to rely wholly on a single commodity, or worse off, foreign aid. We saw how each nation and union began hauling for themselves personal protective equipment, ventilators, and medication at the initial stages of the pandemic. Most powerful nations bought up majority of life-saving supplies, leaving the poorer nations scrambling for peanuts. As Africans, it became clear that we have no one to rely on but ourselves. Not our international development partners, not our major trade partners, just us, Africans. It has therefore become imperative to devise homegrown solutions to the plethora of issues plaguing Africa. As a matter of urgency, we must rethink our policies, our politics, and the way we do business. Intra-Africa trade remains at an abysmally low 18% compared to intra-European trade at 69%, intra-Asia trade at 59%, and NAFTA at 55%. Can you imagine what Africa can become if the African Union prohibited the export of unrefined raw materials and unprocessed cash crops outside the continent? You see, the world cannot operate nuclear power plants without enriching Africa's uranium and plutonium. The world cannot advance technology without Africa's coltan used to build microchips and cobalt used to make lithium-ion batteries that store power for mobile phones, tablets, electric cars, and even space rockets. These examples are just scratching the surface of the global dependence on Africa. We therefore have the opportunity and the potential to force developed nations to invest in value creation on the African continent.
At the symposium, former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria spoke from Washington, D.C., delivering his keynote address, which centered on human capital development in Africa. He called for more focus on human development and structural economic transformation, and not just GDP.
In the world in which we are, rethinking Africa means that we have to take a second look at Africa's possibilities in the world today, especially the world as it's going to be shaped after the COVID crisis. This requires us to rethink the continent's future. And first of all, we have to recognize that we have to consciously own and shape our continent's future. This requires, in my view, that we develop a very robust kind of worldview as Africans. What is our view of the world? What is our interpretation of the world and our place in it? So this is very, very important and very fundamental. We need to know where we're coming from. We need to know where we're going. We need to know how we are going to get to where we're going. And we need to have a value system, a knowledge system, a strategy, a plan of action. That's the mindset with which we should be looking at rethinking Africa and the possibilities for Africa's youth.
On the presidential panel, which was moderated by the MC of the event, Mawuli Gavo, past president of Malawi, Dr. Joyce Banda, spoke about inequality on the continent and called for government to help women make income again.
Governments across Africa must decide that they are going to include women and include girls in that recovery program. I have been saying for the longest time that Africa must focus on the girl child from ages 0 to 10. Usually, our partners will come and support us in focusing on the girl child, the adolescent girl child. And my argument has always been that that is too late. There's so much harm that happens between the ages of 0 to 10. And that will get worse as a result of COVID-19. These are the girls who are sitting at home, they are being defiled, they are getting married, and the ones that got married, the 15,000 I talked about earlier in Malawi, are between the ages of 10 to 14. So we need to pay a lot of attention to the eradication of harmful traditions that negatively impact on our girl child. We must begin. We have seen the role that African women have played in growing our economies across the continent. As business women, as market women, which is what is not happening now. In looking forward, the strategy should be to make sure that the microfinance institutions, banks, are paying special attention to those women who are entrepreneurs anyway. African women don't just sit back and wait for handouts. African women wake up early in the morning, work 14 hours a day to bring a meal to their table, to work, to go to the market. That is not happening now. Governments, then, there should be political will to ensure that these women have access to income. They have access to income through income generation. Because when a woman brings income into the poor household, the household benefits. They have they have better nutrition, better health, and better education for children, including girls.
Past President of Nigeria, President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, joined the conversation at the panel where he talked about governance structure and democracy. Jonathan stressed that the way to have credible elections across the continent is to have electronic voting.
To me, if Africa especially will move forward, it's not just about routine conduct of elections. This year alone, in West Africa, made up of 15 states, We have 5 states that have elections. So in terms of regular elections, we are progressive. But are these elections credible? And do they really represent a constitutional democratic setting is the issue. Regular elections, fine. But elections per se, it's not democracy. If the votes of the citizens don't count, then it's as good as military dictatorship. So for me, the reforms should first gear towards making the votes count and taking a critical examination about the way elections have been conducted across the continent, from at least the ones I've observed. I've seen that the only thing that we must do to get there is through electronic voting. People may feel, yes, people could manipulate, smart boys who can hack into the system and do all kinds of things, yes. But still, people still use the electronic system to move hundreds of millions of dollars across the world. So I still believe very sincerely that that is the way to go.
African youth were not left behind, as one of the panel session was dedicated to the role of youth and entrepreneurship in rethinking Africa. The panel session stressed the importance of young people in rebuilding the Africa that they dream and imagine.
Care enough about the state of things to be part of something that is bigger than yourself, that is bigger than your own personal chase for success. See, everywhere you turn in Nigeria and everywhere you turn in Africa, you'll find problems, one after another. Some of these problems have existed for decades. But it's not enough anymore for us to just point fingers and complain, because talk is cheap and talk is easy. It's much more difficult to do something about what you see that is going wrong. So if you truly care about where we are as a country or where we are as a continent, then care enough to do something about it. You can participate in community service, you can donate to a charitable effort, you can participate in protests or politics or something. Just care enough to do something about where you've seen that we are. Be frustrated enough to do more than just talking and tweeting. Care enough to do something about it. In the very least, care enough to pay attention to who is participating in our politics, because they're the people that are setting the policies that we're all living and dying by. And so if you're not going to get involved in it yourself, at least pay attention to who is and care enough to participate in voting and participate in just paying attention to who's there. So point 1 is belief, point 2 is care. The last point is just to try. Mark Twain once said that patriotism is loyalty to one's country all the time and loyalty to the government when it deserves it. I stumbled upon that quote many years ago, and it has since informed many of my decisions and actions when it came to Nigeria. So whether it was by building businesses, protesting policies, or participating in politics, for me, it was always about attempting to be on the side of the people who want to make Nigeria better, want to make Africa better.
Our generation has a responsibility to our people, to Nigeria, to West Africa, to the world. And we've watched as our futures have been squandered by the people who have gone before us, whom we hoped would prepare a nation for us to run with. So when I decided to run for office, it was to come understand that process. I told my friends, I said, we complain a lot about the conditions at home, about the state of affairs. But as young people, we hardly engage. And in order for us to understand how to effectively effect change or capture the system, it was important to learn to go through the process. And what going through the process was supposed to do was, one, understand what has worked for the generations of people who've been there for the last 40, 50 years, right? But also figure out where the loopholes and the flaws are in their systems, which were built upon successes from 40 and 50 years ago. We have so much at our disposal today that can disrupt or at least circumvent these processes?
The youth of Africa are faced with mainly three challenges. Number one is corruption and elitism, which seeks to satisfy the politics of the stomach. Now, here in South Africa, we've had many scandals that came up recently where you'll find that the politically connected individuals have been awarded the contracts to supply PPE to the Department of Health. Number two is rules and regulations. That makes it very difficult for entrepreneurs and professionals alike to get into the professional spaces because of issues like compliance and qualifications. Now, the third one, which I think is critical of them all, it is the issue of the untapped and often ignored demographic dividend that we have in Africa. Now, the African demographic dividend consists mainly of the youth. Now, what we need to do is for Africa to create an economic environment that will allow the youth of Africa to partake in the economy from as early as possible and for as long as possible.
Also, giving a keynote speech, Professor and art historian Professor Chika Okekeagolu spoke on the role of arts and culture in the future of a better Africa.
Africa still dealing with the trauma of colonization and bad governance has not shown the capacity to take ownership of its history in all its complexity and sophistication. And I'm saying that until Africa takes charge of recovering its histories on its own terms, it cannot meaningfully account for its present, much less imagining a competitive future without relying, sadly, on the same sources that for centuries forced it into a state of God-forsaken disadvantage.
The final panel of the symposium featured key decision makers in a fireside chat who couldn't be left out in the conversation of rethinking Africa.
There are huge challenges. I'm one who believes that even as we face crises, we can build from them and take lessons from them. I think ours, is invest in capacity. Capacity, capacity, capacity. Africa's shown what it can do to build that capacity and to act on it. I think the second is to act in unity, in concert, and collaboratively. A virus like this, climate change, many of the challenges we face don't pay attention to borders and in fact exploit disunity. So the second is how do we work together and collaborate more effectively? The third is how do we invest political capital? These things don't happen by sheer will alone. How do we marry political capital, data, science, and evidence? And make sure that our citizens are fully engaged and not just those who are doing their part by participating in a lockdown, by sacrificing, but are also part of building, changing, and growing.
Through the effort of the AU chairperson, His Excellency President Ramaphosa, and the work of the AU envoy, Ms. Masiwa, and others, Africa has been able to negotiate what they call the Africa quota from different suppliers and reduce the price of some of the material by up to 40%. But beyond that, the Afrexim Bank has also been doing other things to support the continent at this time. We launched a pandemic trade impact mitigation facility in March to help the continent support the continent to procure COVID materials, to help the different countries, the banks and the corporations to adjust in an orderly manner to the economic shock brought by the pandemic. As we speak, we've disbursed over $5 billion under this facility. This has benefited banks, corporations, and countries all over Africa.
There is a tide in our affairs. This is the time. These are the floods upon whose crest we must ride. And Africa will be great. This thing that Africa is a deadbeat continent is a calculated, diabolical machination by those who want to subjugate Africa to make us repose in slumber, we must refuse. So let us go out there to create the big ocean that is in Africa. Each one of us must play our part. Let us be a big tree in a big forest. Let us be good trees as individuals that we may make a forest that will make Africa visible and great for this generation and generations yet to be born. In this quest, the approach of leadership must not only be co-generational, but intergenerational.